Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they released. Today we're on our second film in our 1980s New Line Cinema miniseries. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And today we're talking about Relentless from 1989. Budget of $4 million. Opening weekend made $2.8 million and a domestic and overall gross of $6.9 million. This was released August 30th, 1989. That is barely 5 months after Hit List. In 835 theaters, and it opened at number 9. Top 5 films this weekend is Uncle Buck, Parenthood, The Abyss, When Harry Met Sally, and Lethal Weapon 2.
Those are some good movies in there. I think.
Yeah.
What was the third movie or the fourth movie you had in there?
Uncle Buck, Parenthood, The Abyss, When Harry Met Sally, and Lethal Weapon 2.
The Abyss is the one I haven't seen. Yeah.
I haven't seen The Abyss or Parenthood.
I've seen The Abyss, just not in a very long time, and I'm sure I would like it a lot more than I did when I was like 11 or 12.
The thing with The Abyss is, like, every time I'm like about to want to watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, which version do I watch? And then somebody tells me, and then I hear from somebody else a different version, and I'm just like, whatever, I'm watching something on Tubi, I don't care.
I think it's the extended cut. I think the extended cut's the one you want to watch, but I mean, don't quote me. I'm sure if we get any comment, they're going to be like, you idiot. But I will say, if there's one thing that stuck with me throughout my life from The Abyss, it is one of the most horrific sequences of the character drowning I have ever seen. It's like just this flat out horrifying that I still think about to this day.
Yeah, I think that's the only Cameron that I care to watch that I haven't seen. Should I watch Piranha 2? When you look at me, do I look like somebody who has seen Piranha 2? Do I need to keep up appearances and watch
yes,
Piranha 2?
Yes, you do, actually.
Okay.
Get your face of Lance Henriksen. I know you did that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Get a lot of Piranha 2, The Spawning from this guy. And be like, actually, I haven't seen that.
Did you see Avatar 2?
Do I look like somebody who has seen Avatar 2?
I don't know. Like, that movie made like all the money in the world. I feel like it's like
I haven't seen that either.
It's a 50-50 shot. If you like ask somebody on the street if they've seen Avatar 2, I literally feel like it could go either way, and it doesn't matter how they look or appear.
Saw the first one, don't like it. So
I think this one's a little better. I mean, I love so many Cameron movies. I mean, Terminator 1 and 2, Titanic, like Aliens, all like all-time favorites. But like, I mean, Avatar, it's my thing of like, well, if this is what he wants to do, it's fine. They're not gonna move me as much as his previous work, but I will always be there to see it because I'm curious.
I took so long to watch Titanic, and it was one of those. I was like, yeah, I think I watched that like not very long after I watched Forrest Gump for the first time, and I was just like, sure, watch all the movies that I've just like put off. That I was just like, this has a good ending, don't worry.
Okay, because I was about to say, if you're comparing Titanic to Forrest Gump, one of those movies is
it was more so
better than the other.
Like prestige movies from the 90s. That makes sense.
Yeah. That I was just like, who cares? I don't care. And then I watched Forrest Gump, I was like, this fucking dog shit. And then I watched Titanic the first 30 minutes, I was like, yeah, it's about what I think it is. And then about an hour in, I was like, this kind of fucking kicks ass.
Yeah.
And then it just continues to kick ass.
It's a bunch of movies crazy glued together, and by all means it shouldn't work, but by God it does.
Yeah, it's good shit. Terminator 1 kicks ass. I like that.
Yeah, I do not understand. Like, I love the first one too, but I don't understand how you don't like the second one. I don't get it.
It's fucking like 9 hours long, dude.
It feels like it's 20 minutes.
No, I don't dislike it. That was also one that I didn't see until I was like 25. So.
Oh my god, I watched
same thing with Jurassic Park. I think Jurassic Park's fine, but I saw it when I was like 25. So I feel like everybody else that has ever existed has watched that since they were like 5, and I was just like,
I have seen Jurassic World, but not Jurassic Park the whole way through because I'm a Philistine.
No, I saw Jurassic Park 3 first.
To be clear, I didn't like Jurassic World. I didn't think it was, like, yeah, no, it was just one of those things where I was like,
I need to leave. I can't deal with this.
I don't know. I grew up and everybody was like, oh, I love dinosaurs. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to watch WWF. Like, shut up. I don't care about dinosaurs.
Snakes, though. Yeah.
I do remember being like horrified by Jurassic Park because I had a friend growing up where our backyards were connected, and it got to the point where we would just knock on the door and just walk in. And he had an older brother, so he was allowed to watch all sorts of stuff that I wasn't when I was young, and like was like, "What you watching, Jurassic Park?" And it was the scene where Laura Dern backs up, and then Samuel L. Jackson's arm hits her, and then she turns around, and it just severed. And I remember like being 6 and being like, "Oh!" like just like total like blacked out, like couldn't handle it.
You setting that up reminds me of the Mitch Hedberg joke. He's like, I have an apartment and I have a friend who lives right next to me, and sometimes to get my attention, he'll knock on his side of the wall, and I'll say, "Go around. I cannot open the wall. I don't know about you, but it's all blank over here." Number one song in the US this week is Right Here Waiting by Richard Marx. The next week track was Cold Hearted by Paul Abdul, also music video directed by Fincher. Number one song in Canada is So Alive by Love and Rockets.
That's a really good song.
Oh, yeah.
It plays in the scene in Rules of Attraction where Ian Somerhalder and James Van Der Beek are like getting high, and like he like imagines them looking up.
The split screen? Yeah. Love and Robots, isn't that the Fincher produced Netflix show?
Love,
actually?
Death, and Robots, right?
Yeah. I've heard it's like pretty bad, actually. Plot description from Google, another one where it's just like, we got a sentence. We're used to like fucking 3 paragraphs from Google, but as a newly appointed police detective, it is not easy for Sam Dietz. He is under pressure to succeed, as the so-called Sunset Killer taunts him. Okay. That's
Sure. Yeah.
I wouldn't read that and be like, holy shit, is that rentable? Can we go rent that? Yeah. Written by Phil Alden Robinson, who is credited under the pseudonym Jack T.D. Robinson. Previously, he had written Carl Reiner's All of Me in 1984 and co-wrote Bob Clark's Rhinestone in 1984. He had also written and directed 1987's In the Mood and more famously Field of Dreams in 89. Following this, he directed and co-wrote Sneakers in 1992, directed The Sum of All Fears in 2002, and created The Good Fight, The Good Wife spinoff that ran from 2017 to 2022.
Is that the one with Christine Baranski? I know she was in The Good Wife as well.
I don't know.
It's Christy Baranski. My parents watched that for a few seasons. I've heard it's quite good.
Where does The Good Nurse come into all of this?
As a gay man, I feel like I'm going to be required to watch The Good Wife and The Good Fight before I die at some point. Like, they'll just, like, wheel it into my hospital.
They're like, we're sorry, we only have 24 hours to live. It's like, I haven't seen The Good Fight or The Good Wife. Scratch that. Scratch that.
Just give me anything with Christine Baranski in it. Because I love her.
We couldn't get The Good Fight or The Good Wife, so we got you The Good Doctor instead. Shit!
Is that Norman Bates? Is that who that is?
Yeah, that is. It's Freddie Highmore. Yeah.
Norman Bates, okay. I just remember, I've not seen any Bates Motel because I'm just like, who the fuck cares? But I just remember them showing a commercial, like, before like an AMC movie where they would show commercials and whatnot, and the entire thing, it was just like, you can't keep doing things like this, Norman Bates. And I'm just like, oh, is this the whole show? It's just being like, why don't you go ask your mother?
Also the kid from I remember also in the first season of that show, which I watched, his brother is Max Theriot from My Soul to Take, and Chloe, who's like a pot dealer.
Chloe, yeah.
He like ends up working for like pot dealers, and like he gets into like shootouts, and there's like also like a serial killer sheriff.
Oh no.
It's very weird.
Isn't for Farmiga, didn't she and like Freddie Highmore become like really, really close? Isn't he like the godfather of her children or something as a result of that show? Something
know
He
that.
can't
like
be a
that.
godfather.
That's
That
nice.
kid's like 13.
Yeah, no, that kid is married. That kid's like 30, dude.
He's been around
You get
forever.
married at 13? Really? Okay.
Oh,
Fucking
Jesus.
great balls of fire ass. Okay. Directed by William Lustig. This is his follow-up to Hitless, which also came out in 1989. We talked about that last week. Starring Judd Nelson as Buck Taylor. Prior to this, The Breakfast Club in 1985. St. Elmo's Fire also in 1985. This is just a dreadful movie, that is. And Blue City in 1986. Which both Blue City, St. Elmo's Fire, and The Breakfast Club, I have all of him and Ali Sheedy. Blue City's bad. I half watched that while doing the outline for this, and it's one of those movies where they're just like, what do you expect? It's Blue City. And you're just like, I don't know, like it.
What does that even mean? What commentary does that provide? Like,
I don't know. It's just like trying to make its own like world, like it's Dark City, except it's just like someplace in LA where it's just
I
like
read it was in Florida. Like
Probably. I don't know.
Next time I go visit my brother before, it's great here to be with you in the Blue City. And he's be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's Florida. It's a red state, you asshole. There's no Blue City.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Judd Nelson is just like, comes into town and he's just like, I haven't seen my dad in like 6 years. I guess I'll go pay him a visit. And they're just like, too bad he's dead. And he's just like, well, never really cared for him, but I guess I got to figure out who killed him. And then it's just like, God, who else is in it? It's, what's his name?
You said David Caruso's in it, right?
Yeah. Young-ass David Caruso. Where it's just Judd Nelson and David Caruso going and, like, banging up a bunch of casinos that is owned by some guy that probably killed his dad. It's a whole thing.
What even is this?
It's written by Walter Hill, right? Or like co-written by him? Like,
co-written by Walter Hill. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, now I actually have to see it. And yeah, written and produced. Okay. Now I'm interested.
Don't be. Later, he appeared in New Jack City in 1991. Hell yeah. Airheads in 1994. Also hell yeah. And Light It Up in 1999. Hell something. I don't know. And you didn't put this, but I had to put this. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in 2001. And of course, Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day in 2009. Charlie, go ahead.
I haven't seen it. Look.
Oh.
Okay, I saw the first one in high school. I didn't see the second one. Jesus Christ. Do I have to answer for every cinematic crime that Boston has committed?
Yeah.
I don't even know if the second one takes place in Boston. I mean, I would assume it does, but I don't remember.
It takes place in Florida. He has also had many guest spots on TV shows and acted in many TV films over the years, but it's worth remembering he had a starring role in the first 3 seasons of NBC's Suddenly Susan. Robert Loggia as Bill Mallory.
For whatever reason, my brain just went to Suddenly Seeking Susan. Like, God damn it.
Which is like, we're not seeking her. She's just here. Suddenly.
She's
Susan.
just here. Suddenly.
We got 3 seasons out of this.
Sure. Yeah.
Robert Loggia, prior to this, Greatest Story Ever Told in 1965, Scarface in 1983, Jagged Edge in 1985, which he got a Best Supporting Actor nom at the Oscars. And
wait, really?
Big, yeah.
I don't even remember him in that movie, but I don't remember a lot of Jagged Edge. I think that movie's fucking boring.
And Big in 1988. Later, he appeared in notable films such as Independence Day in 1996, Lost Highway in 1997, and Independence Day Resurgence 2016.
Oh, he was in the sequel?
It's like a cameo, and the movie came out like a year after his death, because
he's also in Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie as one of the villains, and he kidnaps both of Tim and Eric's moms, who are clearly played by elderly women who are not actors, and it like actually shows them like obviously the actresses weren't in on this, but there's like actually like graphic scenes of him like cutting off their fingers like with really fake gore, and it just cuts back to these actresses just not having any lines, just ad-libbing, and he's going full Loggia, just like, where are they? I wish I could tell you. Just like, you know, they're like losing fingers.
That's nuts. But yeah, just being like, after Relentless, what'd you do? Oh, I was in Independence Day, Lost Highway, really? Yeah, what else? You know, I was in Independence Day Resurgence, you know.
There were a lot of things in there. I think I just like said those because like they were like some high profile things, especially like with Lynch, and then like, you know, Independence Day Resurgence, you know, yeah, sorry if I'm with all these actors who like have, you know, dozens and dozens of film credits. It's just like you kind of have to narrow down, like just sort of like, I don't know, just like name a few movies that they're in, and then like, well, we can't go through their entire filmography, but yeah.
How do we feel about Lost Highway in terms of Lynch's filmography? Because I'd say it's like top 3 for me, and I know that's kind of a hot take.
I've only seen it once, but I mean, I literally every single day think about Bill Pullman going, "That's fucking crazy, man."
Oh my god, that scene!
It's maybe my favorite line reading ever. That's fucking crazy, man.
I will never forget seeing that at a midnight screening at the Coolidge with my friend Greg, who loved Lynch but still had never seen that, fell asleep for like first 20 minutes, woke up during that scene where he's just like, I'm at your house. Yeah, call me. And then I dials the number. I told you I was here. And Greg just looking at me just being like, what the fuck is
screaming
happening?
At the projector. Yeah. Please, I'm very sorry I fell asleep. I didn't know I was getting involved. Yeah. Leo Rossi as Sam Dietz, we talked about him last week in Hitless, and Meg Foster as Carol Dietz. Prior to this, Sam Peckinpah's final film, The Osterman's Weekend, in 1982. Don't know anything about that. Masters of the Universe, 1987. They Live in 88, and Blind Fury in 1989. Who directed that? Philip Noyce. That's right.
She was also in Lords of Salem. She was one of the... And Meg Foster, I believe.
We're getting there.
Oh, okay. I thought you were done. Excuse me.
No,
Rude.
her career ended after Blind Fury in '89. Actually, after this, she's in Dead On, Relentless 2, 1992, and let it be known that there are 3 direct-to-video sequels to Relentless, and released in 1992, 93, and 94. Past almost major subject, The Minus Man in 1999. We all remember her in that movie.
I do not remember her in that movie.
She literally just is 3 seconds in a diner with Owen Wilson, and then he goes over to her place and she has all these weird paintings, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta go."
Oh, right. There's not a
He's
lot
like
of
the
that
only.
movie I remember.
I mean, I remember the trailer. That's about it. God, this is the greatest trailer ever. Lords of Salem in 2014 and Overlord in 2018.
2012.
Did I mess up the date? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No, I'm sorry. Well, that just now.
No.
Like
Thank you for correcting me. I like to be factual about this. It's good.
No, it's
Lords of Salem, I'm seeing here, it's in 1987. This is correct.
That movie's great.
I thought it was 2014. Yeah, that's
Was 31 2014? Maybe that's what I was mixing up with. I'm sorry.
31 was 2016 because I attended a press screening at Sundance and there were 5 people there.
Everybody in the press just watching a 10-minute monologue that starts that movie, and it's just it's 11 in the morning. What are we doing? Yeah, Lords of Salem, I'm not on it's an incredible movie, but it's doing a lot that I actually like. Trivia. William Lustig was originally going to direct True Romance before Tony Scott. During that period, Quentin Tarantino and Lustig discussed Tarantino writing Relentless 2, and Tarantino was excited. The two thought that they would be like Scorsese and Schrader writing Taxi Driver together. However, the relationship soured when Lustig demanded rewrites on True Romance.
Wow.
Wow. Joe Spinell was originally cast to play the role of Captain Blakely, but died shortly before filming was to begin. Lustig wanted to fly Spinell out to LA for a scene, but Spinell declined, saying, "I can't do it, Bill. I lost my false teeth. I don't look good." Sad.
Jeez, he was young when he died. My goodness, I'm just looking. Wow.
Yes. Everybody just look up the video whenever Spielberg is waiting for the Oscar nominations, and Joe Spinell is just pissed off because he didn't get nominated for Best Picture for Jaws. Relentless was also the original name for Sam Raimi's 1985 comedy Crime Wave. Raimi allowed Lustig to reuse the Relentless name, and it was because of that it led to Raimi getting a shout-out in the end credits. Speaking of Raimi connections, Scott Spiegel, frequent guy in Raimi films, was an uncredited rewrite on Hit List. Was originally set to be produced by Shapiro Glickenhaus Entertainment under the name Sunset Slayer, but was later passed on to Sentinel Films due to sudden financial issues. Sunset Slayer is kind of a better name. What does Relentless even mean?
He won't stop.
It's just Relentless. He won't stop. Yeah. Also, I think it's funny, 2 kills in, after he's pretending to make it look like they killed him, after the first kill, the cops are like, obviously, there's a guy who killed this person. We're not falling for this shit. And after the second one, where it's just yeah, she just wanted to kill herself. She got inside of a dryer and just choked herself out. And just
I lost
what?
it. I was like, what?
And Rossi's saying all right, let's look at the evidence, and Loja's saying, whoa, evidence? What are you talking about? You want to do real police work? Let's go to lunch first, pal. All right.
Imagine Identity, but the first killing with Rebecca De Mornay was well, she wanted to die. She cut her own head off and she put it in the dryer.
Which just no, she put him in the dryer. She's like, look again, Captain. She was trying to kick herself out of the dryer. She obviously hid in there, and he's just like, I don't care. It's I'm Robert Loggia. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Officer Ike Taylor was so respected, so admired.
Ike Taylor, hell of a cop.
There was only one way his son could turn out.
How come you're not on the job?
It wouldn't take me.
It would take you, Ike Taylor's kid. They're lost.
Buck Taylor doesn't need a gun. He's got the telephone.
Hello?
I called to see if you were home. I have to kill you tonight.
This lunatic is trying to show the world that he can pick anybody at random from a phone book and kill him.
He knows your name.
One of them, Sam, against you and me.
He has your address.
Hit again last night. Twice.
He's got your number, and you're about to be disconnected.
My father said I was sick. Once.
Judd Nelson is Buck Taylor, and Buck Taylor is relentless.
How'd you find my address?
In the phone book.
Initial thoughts, I will go first by way of just my somewhat notes while I was watching the movie. My first note was just Meg Foster, you scare me, but go on.
She's great. I love her.
Oh, she's so good in this, especially whenever Judd Nelson kidnaps a kid, she is going for it.
Oh, yeah.
Also, there's a gay joke that isn't gay panic in the first 10 minutes where
I noticed that too.
Where the dad is like, don't marry a girl from the East Coast, and their son, who's just like really into like the saxophone, like he's Lisa Simpson, is like, I don't like girls. And he's like, well, don't marry a boy from the East Coast. And it's like, that's it. And it's
I know that was, I was kind of, it raised an eyebrow with like, oh, that wasn't even, wow, damn. 1989. Wow.
Well, the cops are also making in the stakeout when they're like trying to like trap Judd Nelson at the end and everything. They initially see him like it's just like a guy wearing like like a jean jacket or whatever, and like they think he's like meeting someone for like a gay rendezvous is what they call it and everything. And then like Nelson flees, and then like the boyfriend's not here. And I'm like, I don't know why you think like he'd be like going for a gay rendezvous. I mean, he's just like in the middle of like a neighborhood outside like a
also it's like
house.
2 p.m. Yeah. It's like, those gays, it doesn't matter what day, they're always having rendezvous.
Those are prime grinding and cruising hours, 2 p.m.
What was it? The flashbacks reminded me of Panic. Anything?
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I didn't, but now that you mentioned that, yeah.
Very
definitely.
gauzy, though. Much gauzier than I think Panic was.
Oh, yeah. The music is fucking insane. You get music that reminds me of Bernard Herrmann's Psycho score, but it just plays over like Judd Nelson waiting for a walk sign on the street.
Yeah, that's weird.
And then you've never felt like that before, Kevin? You're just like, I'm going to be late.
The score does kick ass, but it's just like at every single scene, I'm just like, you can chill out for this scene. It's fine.
Because it will have like those like really atonal like strings and everything, but then like it will also like have like these drum beats that like I'm like, this sounds like the To Live and Die in LA score, and I'm like, that's awesome. But
I remember you messaging that in the chat, Brian, and I agree with you.
I also do think Judd Nelson is legitimately creepy in this. Meg Foster is very good, and Leo Rossi once again is just not interesting at all.
No, he's not.
I thought this was fine overall. I think it's a better movie than Hit List, but overall, it's just fine. It's got a lot of like, I'm gonna do the job, and then the captain's just like, no, you fucking won't, and don't send any of our men. The next scene, he's just like, can I get a bunch of men on the scene? He's like, you sent the men, you're not supposed to send the men. And then that's like 10 minutes, but yeah, it's fine. Check it out. Why not? Any of the sequels, can't vouch for him, but Judd Nelson being a little creep, so why not? Charlie, initial thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, better film than Hit List. I found Hit List more fun, even if it's not really about anything. I mean, it does. I think we were talking about this a little bit last night, and even maybe on our Hit List episode, but like, it's kind of a standard cop chasing killer procedural for a lot of it, but I do think by the time, you get to the end, like, you kind of see that, like, it is a movie that ultimately hates cops, which I found to be interesting, because technically, I just find it to be, it's not even like, I mean, I don't think it's even that complex or that subversive, because what it's doing in terms of how it's presenting the message is pretty standard genre tropes of traumatic childhood makes this serial killer, but I do think it's kind of interesting that, like, the reason he's a serial killer is because his dad was this macho cop that his father at least saw himself as this, kind of like, like hero. And because, I don't know, the kid was like 4 and couldn't like hit a fucking target like several feet away from him with the gun, he was just like stupid, like you don't get a Christmas this year type of thing, like behavior. I did think it was kind of interesting that by the time you get to the end of the film, it is like, oh, cops really do suck and are kind of pointless, because there would be no this case wouldn't exist if it weren't for cops abuse, masculinity in terms of, the police force and all this stuff. Also, yeah, the cops are either just completely, as you mentioned, Kevin, just like, fucking whatever, or the angriest motherfuckers that you have ever seen in any movie ever.
So upset.
Like,
It's either that guy who's like so upset or Robert Loggia that's like, I'm here, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that, I will say, I guess we didn't talk about it too much, but I was expecting, based on the fact that I saw Maniac like a decade ago, I thought this movie was going to be a lot. This isn't a complaint by any means, but I thought it was going to be like even grislier and even more gruesome and even nastier than it is. Not that it isn't nasty, but the violence was more restrained than I was initially expecting, because I feel like Maniac, you're just like, oh God, like I feel like I don't feel like I'm 32 and I don't feel like I'm old enough. I'm still not old enough to see Maniac, where this one, it is kind of like, it's kind of a standard, genre exercise, but a little by the numbers, but I will say, like, by the time it was over, I was thinking about it more than I thought I was, in more and it's slightly more subversive than what is initially it initially seems pretty thin, but then when you start to reflect on everything that it's got going for it, even by a beat-by-beat standard plot, I found it to be kind of interesting. Not a great movie, but certainly I would never stop anyone from watching it. And I do agree with you, Kevin, that I think that in terms of acting, I do think Judd Nelson's good, but Meg Foster in those final scenes is like total MVP, and makes like half the movie for an hour. They're basically like, "How was your day, honey?" And she's basically like, "I am wife." But then in like the last 20 minutes, I was kind of like, wow, she's actually giving like a really empathetic performance. I did think about, here's the other thing, I did think a lot about, I will say, part of me was like, kind of wish I was just watching Michael Mann's Manhunter a lot of the time. But then I got to the end and I was like, well, I do see what he's doing. And it's, there's some interesting themes going on here. So
I can't wait to talk about the ending and how they actually get Judd Nelson. It's fucking hilarious.
It's so bizarre.
It's so silly.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned Manhunter. The serial killer movie I thought of, especially with regard to Nelson's whole motive of like how he's like, he both
Hannibal?
He wants to kill himself and also kill other people, is The Hitcher. Like that kind of a
that as well.
The Rutger Hauer thing where he's like, come on, say it, say you want to die, but also kill me, and like that kind of thing. Like it's yeah.
Now that you mention that, I almost feel like this could have been a sequel to The Hitcher if what's the main actor in The Hitcher? Like that's what. Yeah, Judd Nelson's almost playing like his character. If the guy in The Hitcher just went off and did his own thing, it's like that's what he would basically be Judd Nelson after that movie. But yeah, anyway.
No, that's
C. Thomas Howell, our finest actor.
Fine in that movie, but he's not quite up to the level that Hauer is. That's a good movie though.
Who is?
No.
Who is? Yeah.
And he's not up to Jennifer Jason Leigh either, who kicks ass in that movie.
Yeah, she's good in that movie.
Love her always, and great in that movie.
Yeah. One just before I get to my initial thoughts, one bit of trivia. I recognized him at the start of the movie, but I double checked to be sure. The Lieutenant Cardoza, who Leo Rossi hates so much, like the guy who's like smoking the guard when he says like that lying little shit. I didn't get that telegram. That's Edward Bunker, who was like a real life ex-con who played Mr. Blue in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, wow. Shit.
Oh shit.
Oh, that's. There was somebody that I was like, I know that guy, but I just never. Yeah.
And he
wrote Reservoir Dogs was 3 years later after this one, right?
Mm-hmm. And he was like a crime author too. Like he wrote the source material that was made into Dog Eat Dog, the Paul Schrader movie, and I think he's also credited as a co-writer on Runaway Training.
that fucking movie. That movie is bananas.
I did not like that one very much, but
Runaway
Training,
I still need to see it.
Yeah. But no, I just thought that was a cool bit of trivia, and it's again like speaks to like Lustig being cool with like casting like a mix of like character actors and like also people who like are maybe their real life experiences a little closer to some of like the more intense aspects of his movies. I didn't love this. I think you're right that it's a little more polished than Hitless, but like it especially like I would say it's stronger in the climax where like it's cross-cutting between like two sets of like very equally urgent action. I'd say when like it's cutting between Rossi like like tearing down the hills of like LA and like
that is
between
the sweatiest car chase I've ever seen.
Yeah, and like the hostage situation with Judd Nelson and Rossi's family. I think that's like very good. Although it is preceded by like a scene of Judd Nelson gearing up to like go kill a bunch of people, and then Leo Rossi just like sitting in a chair and like stretching and being like, all right guys, keep a watch out. And I'm like, okay, I feel like you could like trim some of the fat a little bit here, because this is like a little bit flabby with some of the pacing, whereas like in Hit List I felt like they kind of messed up the pacing of like the climax, even though but I would say that like the highs of Hit List are not present in Relentless. Like there's nothing, I don't think there's quite as many moments that are like crazy in terms of like the stunt work or like intensity as in Hit List. Like there's nothing like of the level of like the Lance Henriksen car stunt at the end of Hit List in this. Yeah, like the craziest is maybe like Judd Nelson crashing through the sky roof to kill a woman in her mansion. Like that's pretty cool.
That scene does kick ass.
But it comes really early, and then the rest of the movie is just kind of like Rossi and Loggia like driving around and like going from place to place and arguing with each other about the same thing over and over again, and it gets like a little repetitious. And again, it's kind of like the Hit List of a thing where it's like these two guys, like who are like kind of are like, at each other's throats, and then it's like, yeah, you know what, you're all right, and I'm like, okay, I don't really buy this. You talk about baseball one time, and like you guys like are friends now. Although it's kind of, although it does lead to one of the funniest, at least maybe the funniest reaction shot, and cut to what he's reacting like later in the movie. It's so funny. We'll get to it, but holy shit.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was... I think I just mostly found this, like, pretty... Like, I think that's maybe the thing is, like, it's really polished, but it is also, like, very generic in terms of, like, the material. There's not really, like, a lot of surprises in terms of, like, the places that it goes, like, procedurally, or, I mean, like, with the procedural stuff of, like, them policing and, like, the sort of serial killer psychology. And I think it's also just, there's not... Like I said, with like the highs of like sort of the intensity and everything that were achieved in Hit List, even though I found that movie flawed, I felt like this was just like there wasn't quite enough style for me to grab onto. I found the movie like it's competently lit and shot and everything, but it's like it's never quite it never quite grabbed me stylistically. It's also interesting like they came out how like these are two movies that Hit List and this are both like LA movies, and Lustig is like a New York filmmaker, and like I feel like his location work is a little bit more interesting in a sort of like a grimy texture sort of way and stuff like Maniac Cop and Vigilante, and I've heard Maniac is certainly very grimy in texture. And interesting too, I know that this movie sort of splits the difference between like the the investigative aspects of like the cops following the serial killer and then and being inside the serial killer's head. And I thought like, what if the whole movie was like from Judd Nelson's perspective? And I'm like, oh right, Maniac is like that whole thing, right? Like I haven't seen it, but like that's my understanding of it, right? It's just like the killer's perspective. So I thought that was I thought that was interesting.
It's also very clear that he doesn't like LA nearly as much as he likes New York, because the characters, there's not even subtext. The characters are literally just not stop. They won't stop talking about it.
Yeah, like he says like, oh, I like this baseball player until he went to LA.
Yeah, exactly.
Nelson is pretty good in this, although it is like kind of just like the sort of like staring intensely at the middle distance, like to show that he's crazy. I think the best scene for him is when the cops visit him and don't know who he is, and he's trying to act normal. That's a really that's actually one of the creepier scenes in the movie, especially because like the cop like Rossi gives him the gun, says hide it in the drawer, and like he seems like almost excited about it and everything. Like it's kind of the classic thing if he wants to get caught and everything, and it's But
I agree with you that the stuff where he's talking to his victims and being like, "See, that's better," I'm just kind of like, "All right," like we've seen that kind of shit before.
The one distinctive thing is like when they show his lips just moving. Like I find it interesting when like you see a scene of violence and they focus on like like not necessarily the violence, but like just an unusual an unusual facial feature. Not the mouth is an unusual facial feature, but like it's like that's not what you expect to be the point of focus in like a scene of violence, not someone's mouth. It does make it seem like a little more unseemly, especially because he speaks so like intimately. But the stuff he's saying
going
is
in on
rough.
Judd Nelson's facial features. Wow, didn't expect this. This guy's got a weird ass mouth. 1 star reducted.
But no, I mean, it's also like
I'm just imagining like photoshopping Steven Tyler's mouth over Judd Nelson.
Goodness, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to say anything bad about Nelson.
Doing like Clutch Cargo, where it's just like a still image of Judd Nelson with somebody's mouth moving the entire time. Sorry, Brendan, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I always say this is actually pretty appropriate casting too for Nelson, because I always found his character in Breakfast Club to be kind of like creepy, like not just because he's like so much older than the other cast members, but like also like he's just like the things he does in the movie. Like,
it's like, how was he in high school? This man is 34.
Yeah. So I think like he's actually pretty well cast here. Yeah, Rossi again. Don't hang your movie on him. Yeah, it's a little him goes a long way.
I also feel like I didn't mention this. I'm sorry to interrupt real quick, but I also find him very boring and very obnoxious, which I guess it's almost accidental, like with both this and Hit List, that he's boring because he always plays the least interesting characters, but it's also like, I don't know if that's what the movie's going for.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. What did you guys think about the support? Maybe I just didn't love the supporting cast in this one as much, like, because I felt like, you know, Hit List had like Lance Henriksen and Ken Lerner and Rip Torn, whereas this, like, you do have Meg Foster, who I think, I agree with you guys, like, she is really good, like, really interesting, like, you know, choices, like, physically when she's, like, you know, got, like, her hands to her stomach when she's, like, you know, begging for her kid, and, like, showing that she's worried, but also trying not to, like, you know, make this skittish killer, like, do something dangerous. But like I don't know, I feel like
you don't like Loggia. You don't like Robert Loggia.
Well, it's just fine. I think it's. I don't know if it's maybe it's just effective. I found like the dynamic just like really repetitive, where it's like saying like
he doesn't really have anything to do.
You're too old. Like that.
I just find him to be too. He's so insane in everything I've seen him in, even in something like this. I just find him too fascinatingly bonkers. Have you seen Lost Highway, Brandon?
No, that's off the rails. I have a lot of Lynch gaps I need to fill. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll only watch it when we do October films on our show. No, I'm joking. I'll get to it.
Oh, hell yeah.
But no, and I like your theory about how like the movie is like kind of. I like the idea that the movie's showing how cops are like shitty and like can lead to like people being and like their ideas of like puffing themselves up can lead to like, you know, the making of psychopaths. I think the final image, and I think that it's really. The last image, especially not just like with the line of dialogue that they have about, you know, Nelson being like and where he came from and everything, but then like the image of like taking like that, you know, what looks like sort of like a classic piece of like American iconography of like someone sitting at a counter and like looking up to like a police officer and like having this really eerie music play over it. I think that's really interesting. I don't know that I quite got that sense of the movie. Maybe because, and maybe this is, you know, depiction obviously isn't an endorsement, but it's like I guess it's like Rossi, one because like. I'm like, yeah, like he seems to be like saying kind of like the right things when he's like talking to Loggia. Obviously, like, you know, cops are not a great force and everything, but like, you know, he's saying like, well, yeah, like this is like evidence. This is important, like in our investigation and everything. And Loggia being like, okay, man, evidence, whatever. Like,
yeah.
But
I do think it's interesting that like half the scenes where he's just like where he comes home and Meg Foster's like, how was your day at work? And he's just going off and practically like throwing glasses against the wall. She's like, will you calm the fuck down, Jesus? And then there's even
the dinner table scene where he's just like, so we found this girl and her head was like nearly decapitated, and she's like, we're trying to eat, and he's like, all right, so what'd you do today? And she's like, go on. She's like, okay, nearly decapitated, let me tell you.
Well, and it's like, interesting too about Foster like reading that like her character like separates from Rossi in like the direct-to-video sequel apparently. Because in this movie she seems, because I feel like so often in like these in cop movies it's like the wife saying like, even when you're here you're not here, and like, you know don't bring your job home with you and everything. But in this, like when like the killer is like sending like threatening notes to like is like sending threatening calls to his house, she's like saying like, no, I'm not gonna like run away, I'll stick by your side. But then like the bloody note is found and he's like okay,
2 minutes later he's just like, all right, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
There's even smaller things that I wasn't even really thinking about it while I was watching the movie, and so much after I watched it, where certain scenes that kind of play kind of flat in the moment, but like there's a scene where he's in bed with Meg Foster and the kid comes in and is like, Mom, I had a bad dream, and he basically said, kid, you're asking for a knuckle sandwich if you don't leave this room. And Meg Foster's like, all right, calm down.
He wants to know about his dad's day, and he says like, "Oh, I'll maybe tell you another time." And the kid's like, "No!" Like,
It's like, you're asking for a knuckle sandwich, and Meg Foster's just like, "Why don't you just go? Okay, why don't you like? We'll give you whatever you want tomorrow, as long as you go back to sleep and have good dreams." I do think it is saying something, maybe not all that in a nuanced way, or even a way that is like great filmmaking, but I do think that the whole nature versus nurture thing when it comes to the parenting style and the, you know, paralleling the cop and the killer is like, it's there. It might not even be conveyed that well, but I think they're trying to do something with that.
Yeah, no, it's, I guess the one thing I was gonna say is like even when the thing that like I guess is maybe like sort of wonky to me, especially just like about some of Lustig's other movies and how they portray cops and everything, and like their sort of renegade attitudes. It's like, you know, Rossi's renegade attitudes saved the day at the end. Like if he didn't do that, like if he did do the stuff he did, his family would be dead, and it's like, and he wouldn't.
Can't wait to talk about
and it's
it.
like kind
Yeah,
of
but if his dad also wasn't a cop, then there wouldn't be a problem to begin with. There wouldn't be a movie.
well, you know what? There you go. That is, I guess again, it's the thing.
Then it would
maybe
just be relent. Wouldn't it be less?
yeah. You know, that's maybe
It would just
the
be
can't have that.
Maria Rossi having a boring life in New York or something, and he's like, I don't know, working at like a homeless shelter. I don't know.
Working at Costco.
That's an interesting read of the movie, possibly being a little bit more complicated in its ideas. I like that read of it. I still don't know that the movie entirely grabbed me stylistically and narratively to like, you know, especially with like the lead performance and like just sort of like a lot of like stuff that felt kind of formulaic to me. I felt it didn't quite grab me, but that you sort of turned me over a little bit on like thinking how the movie's possibly got more going on than possibly BCI. Although I will also say Maniac Cop 3 Batch of Silence, which I'll just keep studying because I watched this research.
Batch of Silence.
It opens with like a character like bringing like a subatomic machine gun to like a convenience store robbery, and then like it's like the news media is like framing it as like she just like shot this like convenience store person like, you know, without being armed, and like then Robert Duffy like unearths like this videotape where it's like actually the convenience store owner was in on it, so she was right to like, you know, take this violent action and everything and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, like like it's like again, it's like this weird thing where it's like, is Lustig like thinking that like cops are not tough enough? That seems to be like the actual problem. Like
I think it's like they're polar extremes is what he's getting at. And again, I agree with you that the filmmaking isn't exactly like it's not whenever it comes to subtle. That's the thing, is it's very loud, but at the same time it's like I don't know if it's almost accidental or if it is got this stuff on its mind, because it does play as pretty clunky melodrama when it comes down to it. But even the first cop where the guy's like, hey, this guy left like a voicemail on my answering machine saying he was gonna kill me, and like I think I sent this in the group chat.
Where were you an hour ago?
It made me think of like when Marge showed up in that episode of The Simpsons where they're all having a pizza party. He goes, this definitely better be about pizza. Like he's just like, I don't know, go home. And he's just like, but I have the tape right here. And they're just like, we can't be policing the whole city.
Yeah, and like there's later a line about how like the woman in the big house with the piano and everything, it takes like 30 minutes for the police to show up like to that neighborhood or whatever. Yeah. Now from what I've heard about like real life police in that sense, it does sound like they take like it like there is that kind of like and it is sometimes like it's targeted in ways. Let's say that like in terms of like who they show up for, which is a huge problem. But no, it's just interesting. And you know what? Lustig, part of me wonders like, is he like, you know, like is he like reactionary, or is it just sort of like cynical in the way of like, well, everyone's terrible, everyone's the worst and everything, like the cops and the judges and like, you know, all the other people, like it's like, and everyone is corruptible and like to a certain extent and everything, whether like you're a member of an institution like law enforcement or the courts, or like, you know, just a regular person like in Hit List or Vigilante. I don't know, just kind of.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's also the same guy he didn't write it, but he directed Maniac Cop, which is about just like, wouldn't it be scary if a cop was killing people? No, not really. What if he was a zombie and wanted to kill people and be like, oh shit, now that's scary. And it's just like, you have to, you know.
But like Maniac Cop is weird too, because like I forgot about this because I hadn't seen the movies in a while, but like, you know, like 3 opens with like, you know, like after like, you know, Officer Matt Cordell and the previous Maniac Cop movies was cleared for being framed by the other cops. And I'm like saying, so he was like a good guy originally? Like what the fuck? Like that doesn't make that makes it like more complicated. Like what the fuck? It's which
he got stripped of his badge of silence.
Yeah, that's maybe something for me to wrestle with. Anyways, sorry, I'm bringing in all this other stuff, but
no, I think that's what the movie's about. It is kind of interesting because when I was watching the movie, I'm like, I don't know if this is like that, like about much at all. And then I thought about it a little bit, and I was like, oh well, maybe this is what it was getting at. And also, 1989. I mean, Ronald Reagan, like being president, like around that time. You know, I think
it's just very interesting with Lustig, just like his early movies being very exploitation, and then these aren't. I mean, Relentless did make like $8 million, which in the late 80s is nothing to sneeze at, but it's just very much like making like kind of like 3 kind of, you know, movies that are trying to be very mainstream and very easily watchable by people. It's not like Maniac, where it's just like trying to take those ideas from like a maniac and a vigilante or something like that and putting it into mainstream. It's just like it seems like it kind of gets lost in translation, or it's just not there.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, to be clear, with the kind of cocaine joke, I'm talking about his character in the movie. By the way, I wasn't talking about like a real him in real life. My goodness, yeah.
Oh, I thought we had a scoop. I wanted this episode to explode, but I guess not. I have a synopsis
I'm
here.
doing cocaine right now.
I thought we all were.
Yeah.
That makes me think of the Andy Samberg, Kit Harington tennis comedy special where it's like about like their tennis stars, and like it's revealed that Andy Samberg's character's been doing cocaine the whole time. He has like a water barrel he's sniffing like all the time, and he's like, you know, doing lines while like, you know, bowing to the ground and everything, and like sniffing it off his own knuckle. And then like David Copperfield says like, well, this is, you know, for some context, this is back in the 80s when like cocaine was legal. It's like cocaine was always illegal. Really?
You sure about that?
We should have made the joke with Hit List where we were talking about the cocaine in the casket, just Margot Robbie off to the side. Look at yourself. Sick. You're a sick man.
Beautiful.
Let's see. I have the synopsis here, but Bryden, do you have something you wrote down like you did with Hit List?
Oh, yeah,
I would like
could
that more
basically
than
run
me
through the
just...
plot. So Judd
Okay.
Nelson plays a guy who has been rejected from joining the Los Angeles Police Department because he is
He's the Happy Gilmore. He's the Happy Gilmore of the police department.
Yes.
Better luck next year.
Judd Nelson strangling Bob Barker in a dryer somewhere.
That would be amazing if instead
You will
of
not
all
get away with this murder, you jackass.
That's what I was thinking. Instead of the dad flashbacks, you just get the jackass guy popping up everywhere.
And then at the end, it's Leo Rossi and Meg Foster. They're about to drive away, but they first take a last look at the house, and then it's Abraham Lincoln and an alligator and Judd Nelson waving at them.
Gosh.
Okay, we're off to a good start.
Oh, boy.
Tell us more about Judd Nelson.
Yeah, so he's been rejected from the police department, and he starts doing this thing where he starts like, it seems like it's pretty. It seems like it's gonna be random at first, but then like he's like just flipping through the phone book and circling a name, and then he calls the number and says, "I'm gonna kill you tonight." And then first time he does it is like a guy who's like an extra, like he's just like an aspiring actor who like is, you know, jogging and everything, and like he tries to report it to the police, and just as Leo Rossi is walking by because he's being promoted to detective, and the shot follows him, passes the guy, the jogger, and the jogger says like, yeah, this guy called and said he was gonna kill me, and the cop is like, look, we're overworked, understaffed, we can't really do anything about it, you know, just like don't go out.
Everybody gets calls saying they're gonna die. What is this more important?
Yeah. He's Chief Wiggum. Everyone in this movie is dismissive as essentially Chief Wiggum. Like,
I just the idea of somebody calling and be like, I'm gonna kill you reminds me of the Seinfeld whenever George is underneath his desk and he calls Jerry. He's like, Jerry, it's me. And Jerry's like, who is this? I'm gonna kill you tonight. Who is this?
I also nearly expected Kyle MacLachlan to show up behind him and be like, I found an ear in a field, and this guy's just like, oh Jesus, we can't just go around find like, yeah, you found an ear in a field. Okay,
Put it in the pile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy goes home, and he goes into his bathroom, and he like opens the shower curtain, and Judd Nelson jumps out from like the right of the frame and chokes him out. Doesn't kill him, but then like goes into his kitchen and takes like a regular kitchen knife and then like stabs it into his stomach by like putting it into the guy's hand and like saying stuff like, you know, just let it happen. It's easy. You know what it made me think of? It made me think of years later. There's the scene in Drive where Albert Brooks kills Bryan Cranston. He's like, it's done. There's no pain.
It's done. There's no pain.
That moment, weirdly enough, that moment in Drive gets to me more than anything. There's something
so
about
good.
that where he's just like, it's done. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Ugh.
That's such a good, yeah. And then he leaves the note saying, catch me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Rossi, he's like just been promoted to detective. He goes into the place where he's partnered up with Robert Loggia. No one's really friendly with him. Like he says like, hey, how's it going? And everyone just like sort of glares at him and like goes back to their work because they're not friendly. And then they go to the crime scene, and like Loggia and like some other cop are like, you know, just like, you know, very dispassionately, you know, like very like glibly like making jokes about like passwords. It's like, what was that girl who got like drowned into the toilet or whatever? And then like there's like a dead body in front of them. And then Rossi is like actually pointing out some pretty good evidence. It's like, hey, maybe this guy didn't kill himself. Looks like someone like stabbed him with his own knife or whatever. And they're just like, oh, big man, big shot, making the case or whatever.
They were like, we have lunch in 3 minutes. Can you shut the hell up?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit. I'm sure it's at the second murder, but at one point he's like, back in New York, me and my boys, we caught the son of Sam. And I was like, whoa, holy shit.
It's the second murder. And that's because they have the big balcony on the conversation on the balcony of the city.
Way to bury the lead. Like... Yeah, so this guy caught the son of Sam, and they're all just like, shut up, you rookie.
What do you know?
Well, the other thing
It's like, it wasn't just one person. We had an entire team working on it every single day. We had to make sure that there was somebody who maybe had like a parking ticket or something like that at the same time, like going on, and Robert Loach is just like, the son of who? I don't know what you're talking
That would have been great if they just kept going on with every scene. Back when I was... I also caught John Wilkes Booth back in the day.
My cousin's name is Benjamin Franklin Gates.
If you guys would just let me do my fucking job, I would tell you who Jack the Ripper is.
And later he's on the case and a cop behind Leo Rossi's car goes, oh my god, it's a ghost car. He's been dead the whole time. Oh, I need to stop. I need to shut up.
No, this is great. I mean, this is the kind of thing, we were kind of like, while you were watching this movie, like we were like sending each other like jokes and like the group chat and everything, because it's just like this movie like sometimes like it does like invite laughter, I think.
Yeah, and I don't even think that's a detriment to the movie either. I think the movie's kind of asking for it to be laughed at a little bit.
It's pretty cranked up.
Yeah.
It's certainly heightened, yeah.
With the little kid being like, what's a dick? And they're just like, oh, that's a term for detective. But then another time when he walks in, whenever they're doing like, I'll give you the knuckles, and he was just like, what's a fucking piece of shit or something like that? And she was just like, go to your bed and get out of here.
A jerk off, that's what it is. Because Lost Rossi keeps saying, everyone's a fucking jerk off. Yeah.
I couldn't believe that I haven't thought about this movie in years, and it's a terrible fucking movie, but I am a product of when I grew up. It reminded me of the kid in Bringing Down the House, where Queen Latifah teaches the kid how to read by teaching him how to read Playboy. And Dad, what's a rack? Yeah. It's a country. And I'm like, oh, this is the better version of that. Anyway.
That's kind of a good joke still. It's kind of a good joke. It's kind of a good joke. It's funny, I remember watching that movie in theaters, and there's a part where, Steve Martin's, like, estranged wife or divorced or whatever, he's, like, she's going off with, like, some guy that looks like he's, like, 30 years her junior, and he says, like, have fun on your statutory weekend out, and my friend was just, like, tapped his mom, he's like, what's that mean? Like, in the middle of the theater. I was just like, oh, boy. Where are we at? Are we at the piano wire death yet?
We're getting there. Well, I would also say this is like the movie's like sort of attempt of like sort of overheated dialogue where it's like, Robert Loach is like, tell us who the fuck killed him. It's like, like, I mean, how the fuck do I know anything? Like, the way they kind of, like, pepper in profanity, like, just, like, in each sentence is, like, kind of, like, just, like, awkwardly done. But, he's just, like, saying, and, like, he's, like, saying, fuck the evidence, just say who killed him. I'm like, that's not how policing works.
Don't we need evidence to figure out who killed him? No. Just tell me. How about that?
They really are the John Mulaney bit of, there's blood where the victim was, Gross.
Yeah, well, and I also said, instead of back to my hunch, Loach is like, now, back to my lunch, which I was proud of.
It's a Mitch Hedberg joke. It's just like, I would hate to be killed by an arrow. You got shot by an arrow. Let's go that way.
That's good. That's very good. Yeah, but basically the next victim that Nelson claims is she's a songwriter, I believe, and he finds her in the phone book, and her name is Angela Taylor. That'll be important later because of they're looking for A. Taylor names, I think, later on. He, like, calls the number, and then, like, she's really scared, and then, like, there's a cat that they keep cutting to who seems to be, like, sort of, like, it's kind of, like, the classic thing of, like, pets seem to be, like, hyper-aware of danger more than, like, the humans and everything, where, like, the cat's like, meow, and then, like,
meanwhile, it's,
later,
like, the same shot of the cat that they cut back to, like, 5 times, because they were just like, this is the best we got with this guy. I think this is my favorite scene of the movie, probably.
It's like I said, it's like kind of the high point, like with like sort of the sort of crazy stunts that you expect in a Lustig movie at this point. And she gets put on hold, I think, when or she's told like that they're kind of busy and they can't send people out when she calls the cops. And then like that minute, Nelson like bursts through the skylight, weirdly unscathed, not cut by the glass at all.
Nope.
But
sugar glass. That's fine.
he follows her down, takes piano wire from the piano that she was playing on, and while she's hiding in the dryer in like her downstairs area, he seems to have gone away, and then he pops back into the frame and just some scary music, and then like there's like a really claustrophobic shot where like it's like looking at it, or like this, it's like just sort of framed by like the hole in the dryer as he's like trying going and doing his like usual. It's easy, see, that kind of thing, and it's
upsetting.
It's like, here,
that is the
hold
most
these,
upsetting
hold
thing
these,
in the movie.
he says.
It's very harrowing. Yeah. And I also forgot to mention that like to show like Loja be just sort of like disaffected about his whole job is he keeps, whenever he walks into like a crime scene, he always says like, what do you think this place goes for, like real estate price wise? Like,
oh yeah, imagining Robert Loja instead of being on the WTF podcast, instead of asking who your guys are, she's like, how much you worth, how much, what is your place looking like, how much do you put that on the market for?
We do, and then I think it's at this crime scene we have to see we have the conversation outside on the terrace about the son of Sam. And we are getting like flashbacks. We're also getting intermittently whenever we come back to Nelson. Usually after he's killed someone, we're getting flashbacks to his childhood where his dad was like taking him out to the desert for target practice with guns, and like also making him like jump through tires and crawl under barriers while shooting what looks like live rounds at him. And
get his ass.
And it's like really creepy because like it does like have this gauzy look that you expect with sort of like nostalgic flashbacks, but like the events that are happening are just like so insanely fucked up. Yeah, one of the weird things that Nelson's doing is like he's like skipping rope on the rooftop, and like also like doing laps on the edge of the roof, and it's like that is dangerous. There might be like also there's like some like with like the real estate price jokes that Logic keeps making. There's also like I think when we see him on Nelson on the rooftop, like there's like it like cranes down from like a bank sign or something like that, and like just sort of this guy, like I mean kind of the classic, not classic, but like a common thing I think with like lots of people who like kind of snap in violent ways, like they sort of feel like they're not like at the position that they want to be in life and everything, so they just sort of lash out violently.
Can you imagine what these cops must be like? I mean, and not the passive ones, but the angry ones. I'm like, I never would want to encounter these people in like a grocery store or something. like can you just imagine the rage that would happen? Like just in like a typical public setting.
That'd be nuts.
Yeah, Rossi seems to be barely holding it together. Like, there's like the scene where like they're going into like the one cop, Officer Terrell, and like, or maybe it's Lieutenant, and like Terrell calls Loja Gramps, and Loja's like, what the fuck you just called me? And then like Rossi's like saying like, hey, my name's Sam. We're gonna be like, we're gonna be working together. What's your name and everything? And then like when he's out of HR, he's like, I'm gonna rip that fucking guy's lungs out next time I see him. And I'm like, jeez, man, like, could you maybe cool it? Yeah, and also it's really funny too when Rossi's trying to prove himself, he's asked to write up a report of the crime scene, and we cut to him at a typewriter, and he is maybe the slowest typist I've ever seen.
Oh my god, he uses the two fingers. And she's like, how's it going, honey? I couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Went to the school of my dad typing, and he wants to talk about how Loja's old. Yeah.
He's also met with a psychiatrist. He starts like also trying to go to like other people. Like he goes to like a coroner and a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is played by John Goff, I believe is his name, who co-wrote Hit List. That's the actor. Yeah. And he says like he basically just says like
a jackass. That psychiatrist is kind of an asshole.
Well, he says like I wrote this down. Maybe he's just crazy. And then Rossi's like, I could have said that. And then the doctor's like, but I get paid for it. Ha 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 ha. Then the scene ends.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the psychiatrist is secretly played by Mr. Krabs.
Money.
Yeah.
And then it's around this point, I think like while we don't see these two murders, but like two people get killed, and then they go to like an apartment complex, and they pick up like I think like the names of the people are like AT and everything. Like Arthur Taylor is one of the murders, so they decide like, oh shit, we should warn like someone else who has that same name. Like what are the Arthur Taylors are there in the phone book? And who do they go to see but Judd Nelson? They just sort of walk in on him like his door open, and they think like he's like someone in danger, like he's just like a guy who doesn't really care about like protecting himself and everything. And that, like I said, very effective scene where Nelson is like, and it's weird because like he does seem like stuck in a state of this sort of Arrested Development where he's like sitting cross-legged on his bed, and it's like he almost looks like a kid like at story time. It's like super creepy.
Yeah, take him in for that.
Yeah, and it turns out Loja like he sees like the framed photo on like of Nelson's dad on the dresser and says like, oh shit, I knew your dad, like great to meet you, yeah, your dad was a great cop. Then out of earshot, like he has like a line about like, oh yeah, like like when liberals wanted cops to start burping criminals and everything, this guy like wouldn't his dad wouldn't go for it, so he left the force. And I'm like, okay. And
easy there, Loja.
Yeah,
it's also funny that we brought up the Terminator earlier, considering that the Terminator kills the same way that Judd Nelson does in this movie with the phone book. I just was thinking about that. Anyway,
yeah. No, that's good. Nelson sees the bumper sticker on the back of Rossi's car, which says "I love New York," as if we didn't get that already.
With an LA plate, so he's like, oh wait a minute.
Yeah, and at this point, Rossi's trying to be like a little bit more reasonable, and Loja's like sort of like trying to give him a little bit more room to like do his job. And then do we
get to the corkscrew death? I want to get to that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know what? That's the scene. That's what precedes them going to see Judd Nelson and everything. That's the Arthur Taylor guy, I think, who gets killed.
Yeah.
That's Ken Lerner, who plays Torrance lawyer in Hit List. He's like doing coke and like sleeping with one of his employees. So he's not like a good guy, but like he's like going out and then he gets killed with a corkscrew to the neck. That would be funny if they were still saying like, looks like suicide to me.
How you kill yourself with a corkscrew.
But that would be
after you opened a bottle of something.
Jesus Christ, getting stabbed with a corkscrew, that'd be the most painful fucking thing to get stabbed with. Like,
yeah, and it's a corkscrew where you like pull it in and you like pump it out. Ugh. So yeah. And then he's about to leave and he hears this woman upstairs, and then he's still about to leave, and then she says something again, and he almost feels like he has to kill her now, which is even worse.
Were these also the same cops who were in Heathers, I wanted to ask? Or just like it has to be a suicide? Yeah. Terribly dated joke, but it's still funny if Judd Nelson just left behind bottles of mineral water at every kill. I won't get into where that joke goes from there, but yeah.
Okay, so after that,
they go see Nelson when they see that like he has the same name as Ken Lerner, I think. Right. And then after they have the argument with the one cop who like calls Loja Gramps, they go
Gramps,
and Nelson is like like we're cutting back to him periodically as he's just sort of like living his very like secluded life and everything, where he's like sharpening his belt with so he can like shave his face with a razor. And he's like, and he's on the verge of suicide. Like he does, like at one point, like he like throws like a chair at his mirror, and like says, and, like he's talking to his dad in a picture, and like puts the gun under his chin, and he's just like, no, they have to do it. He wants to kill him.
Yeah.
Around this time, they go to Loja. Rossi and Loja are hanging out by the poolside at Loja's apartment complex, where they talk about baseball, and Loja has a picture of a picture of him eating pasta with Lasorda, a baseball player, and that sort of earns Rossi's respect. And then when Rossi goes home after he's made plans to go see a baseball game with him, Loja is immediately murdered by Judd Nelson, who shows up to his place.
The way they go about it is so obvious, where he's like opens the door and he's like, oh, I didn't know you would be here. Hello, how's it going? Why don't you come in?
And
then Judd Nelson comes in.
20 seconds for Judd Nelson to enter the frame.
And then he dies and they come over, and then there's the dramatic shot of him eating spaghetti.
Yeah, while melancholy music is playing on the soundtrack. It is the funniest fucking thing ever.
Who's Robert Loja? I don't know. He looks like the saddest man to ever eat spaghetti.
And that's like really what devastates Rossi, and he's really committed to like catching the killer now. And he's taken off the case by the captain, who's like a classic angry movie captain and everything.
So pissed.
There's a great moment in the movie, like basically just like to skip ahead. Rossi, like, because he's told he can't get more men on the case, he goes to like the lieutenant who he had beef with, played by Eddie Bunker, and says like, hey man, I sent a telegram to you asking you to give me more men and everything, and it didn't go through. And then like Bunker's like, all right, fine, you can get these men. And then like, Rossi's like, all right, fine. But then Bunker's like, wait a minute, this sounds suspicious. I'm gonna call around to see if I got it. And then he like says like, lying son of a bitch. I didn't get a telegram. And he calls the captain, and the captain's like, cuts to the captain, react. He's like, he did what? The camera zooms to him, and he's like, that son of a bitch. And what Rossi does to get Nelson out is that he conspires with the therapist to release a profile of the killer, where he's like,
that he's impotent,
anally focused, sexually impotent, like all these other things, basically humiliating him in public. And Nelson like flips out and like decides like to go off and like try to find this guy to kill him. He like putting the doctor's name in the papers and like while like having like
that's what pisses Judd Nelson off. He's just like, I'm not trying to fuck. What are you talking about? All I have is a gun and a phone book. What do you want from me?
Yeah, and Nelson goes to the rendezvous place, but then when he's going there, when he's trying to go to the doctor's place, he sees the I Love New York plate, and he's like, nice try, and he walks away.
Yeah.
But he eventually, and then like it cuts back to and then like Rossi, I think, eventually figures out that like he figures out that it's Nelson who he went to see when he gets when Terrell plays him the tape of like the voicemail that was like left at the beginning of the movie
from the first victim.
Like, look, we're overworked. We can't help you with this guy who wants to kill you. They play that tape. He recognizes the voice. He figures out
to
that
his hotel. Yeah. They find the telephone book missing the page with Dietz's address.
Exactly.
So then he's just like, call my wife's house. It's this number. And then it goes straight to voicemail. Or no. He's actually already there and puts the phone off the hook. And then Meg Foster looks in and sees that it's off the hook. And then eventually,
Yes. I also, a couple of details from like when he goes to the hotel. Thank you for reminding me that that's how he gets there. But he takes one of the SWAT guys and he's told that 4 of the guys, by the way, when he gets to the team, sorry I'm like on these little details, but it's just like kind of funny because that's like the source of amusement in the movie. But like he says like, all right, these bozos good and everything, like for like the stakeout team, and like one of the guys, the cop says like, yeah, like 2 of them are ex-SWAT guys, like it's good and everything. Then when he goes to raid Judd Nelson's apartment, he says like, all right, how does SWAT do it? And then like the guy says like, I wasn't on SWAT. He's like, shit, brought the wrong guy.
Not to mention you saying bozo just reminded me of the other John Mulaney, but yeah, he told him to beat it, bozo. Like, nobody calls anybody bozo anymore.
Oh, gosh. That's great. There's also, again, this goes towards, Charlie, your point of how, like, showing how the cops are, like, shitty and, like, even in, like, small ways and everything. When they're initially going to the apartment of Judd Nelson, they, like, the elevator opens and, like, they turn with their guns drawn and whip pants to, like, it's just, like, a black man in the elevator. It's like, holy shit, like, go shoot. And he, like, steps back into the elevator. And then there's like I said, there's the cross cutting between like Rossi trying to drive to his house as quickly as possible, going down these like winding hills of LA. That's actually a pretty interesting location use of like sort of like the winding roads of LA. That's pretty cool, I would say, on Lustig's part. And we have the really intense scene where Nelson's holding the kid at gunpoint. The kid seems pretty chill.
Once again,
he seems really put out by this whole situation. Yeah. He's just like, I had plans, but okay.
I want juice. That's basically his whole.
And he gets that juice.
Yeah.
My goodness. Also forgot to mention this in the apartment. He finds the bullet-ridden jacket of Ike Taylor, Buck's dad. And
which they didn't happen to see the last time they were there. That just
what's in the closet where they're just like, he has enough armory here to start World War III. I was like, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not that much. Jesus.
Yeah. Jesus. He's enough armory to kill, like, I don't know, like 4 people so far. I don't think that's World War III.
Oh, God.
He gets it when it seems like Nelson is like he initially points the gun at his head, but then like he aims it like lower to the kid. When like Meg Foster says like, don't shoot yourself, and then he says like, would you rather I shoot your kid? And then like there's like some sort of noise like from off screen, and then like Nelson looks and it cuts to the same sort of gauzy lighting vision of like his dad in that police uniform, and Nelson raises the gun and then shots are fired. A classic Lustig slow-mo where you see like the multiple bullets go in as he flies backwards in slow-mo and multiple cuts, and then it reveals that Rossi is wearing the bullet-ridden jacket of Judd Nelson's dad as a way to sort of like just like, I don't know, like trick him, I guess, into like this association. Don't know
What's
if that's
funny
actually
is,
how it would work, but I guess.
Well, yeah, I don't know that they would be like, I'll put this on, and he's gonna have like a psychological break when he sees me, and then that's when I'll get him.
Yeah, because the
don't
therapist told me he was so much help. No, that's not how it worked at all. The therapist
Because
is
during
an
that
asshole.
entire chase where he's going like, that entire chase is so sweaty because it looks like he's going like, I don't know, like 5 over the speed limit. Like I would feel like if you just like followed the rules, you'd probably still get there on time. But the entire time he's not wearing the jacket, so he is speeding, stops at his house, and he's like, shit, I gotta put on this jacket real quick, and then goes.
And like he doesn't look anything like the dad who we see in flashbacks.
No,
not same body type or head shape or anything. Like it's, but yeah.
It reminds me whenever Norman Bates is revealed to be dressing up as his mother, pretty much.
And then
That's called a callback, folks.
I mean, it is kind of trying to get at the psycho stuff, so I don't think that's a bad callback.
it's like movie crazy, basically. That's what it is.
Yeah,
like,
but the movie crazy stuff is all psycho. That did that whole thing for movie crazy. You know?
yes.
It does end with my man Leo Rossi just being like, so let me tell you all about what happened with Buck Taylor. See, Buck Taylor grew up with his father. Yeah.
And the last scene of the movie is them like piling into the car, and the kid once again seems very chill. He's like, "Do I have to go to school tomorrow?" Like after he's just like witnessed
That
like
is
this.
a true kid shit, where it's just like, I just went through like maybe the most traumatic experience of my life. Do I have to go to school tomorrow?
I actually thought of that, but then I was like, the movie should have ended there. Do I have to go to school? No. Just like directed by William Lustig. It really did make me think of like an interaction between Miss Hoover and Ralph in The Simpsons again.
It should have been like a freeze frame ending. Yeah. It's like, do I have to go to school tomorrow? No. And then like
we forgot to mention that the last note that he's trying to pull out of his pocket, but then he dies, and it says "thank you."
yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that. Good job.
Yeah.
I'm sorry my note if I missed anything with my notes, but yeah.
Well, and then the last line is Meg Foster. She's like, "So, should we go back to New York?" Yeah.
Yeah, and what does he say? He says like he does like some of like his classic Leo Rossi wits, where he's like too much crime. That's his line. And then we dissolve to Nelson's place, and everyone's just kind of like shocked as like they see like how many guns he has and how and also. The sickest thing, his father was a cop. And then like we end on
God.
The image of like the kid looking up at the cop at the lunch counter, and the credits roll.
It's a Norman Rockwell painting, I believe, which if they were going to do that, they got to do the meme one where it's the guy standing up. Isn't that a Norman Rockwell painting?
This guy, Buck Taylor, was a real jerk.
I got something to say. He's got enough armory to start World War III, and everybody's just like, oh, God. Kind of like this movie now more so than after we talked about it, or maybe it's just fun to talk about it.
I do think there's stuff going on in it. It's just that when you're watching it, it just feels like kind of such a like a basic procedural that then after that you're kind of like, oh no, wait, there is stuff going on. It's just it's not as heightened as you want it if you've seen other Lustig films, and
it feels weird not to watch this movie with TNT commercials in the early 90s, like
just a Taco Bell value menu like type of like in commercial.
Final thoughts. What do we got on Relentless? Is it really relentless, or is he just kind of relentless?
I mean, there were 3 direct-to-video sequels. That's pretty relentless to keep this
That's
going.
relentless. Yeah. I believe the 4th one is like Relentless. Roman numerals because they go back and forth. I think it's Ashes to Ashes, I believe. Or that's the Pumpkinhead sequel. I don't know.
It's Ashes to Ashes. Good memory. Funny Jensen's in it, apparently.
Sure.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, just because I like mentioning these cameos, sorry if I'm jumping into final thoughts, is the medical examiner that Rossi talks to is played by George Gallo, who famously wrote Midnight Run, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
Which I have actually
That's
never
nuts.
seen.
Oh,
I've actually
it's
never
really
seen
fun.
Midnight Run.
Yeah.
That's fun. Maybe it's the kind of the thing of listening to our episode sounds funner than actually watching the movie. And yes, I know funner is a word, but I don't know. Check it out. Also, the same thing with Judd Nelson. It's just like he mainly outside of Breakfast Club in the mid-'80s movies kind of has the same shtick, but outside of that is like playing like the 30th build guy where you're just like,
Yeah.
it's really hard to tell that that's the same guy from Breakfast Club because he's had so many different looks throughout the years where it's just like, that's not Judd Nelson. And it's like, yeah, it is Judd Nelson. So I don't know. For that alone, I think he's pretty creepy in it. And Meg Foster's really good in it.
Meg Foster's great.
Yeah.
She sells the hell out of a very done to death scene, even by 1989 standards. You know,
It's kind of like the movie doesn't deserve it, kind of, because she's really given it.
yeah. Just everyone, but like while that scene is being filmed, is just kind of going like tapping everybody. You see this? She's really fucking good.
How much are we paying her? Really? Wow. Should we give her a raise? I didn't say that. I'm just saying, wow. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash91. Once again, thank you for listening.